Right. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the April meeting of the Zonta Says Now Intercontinental Think Tank. Please remember to keep your microphone on mute and raise the hand icon if you have any questions. You may also ask questions in the chat line. We'll record today's meeting, but conversations in the breakout rooms are not captured in the final recording. We've got quite a program today with some marvelous speakers, so I just want to, let's get moving. In the chat line, could you please say hello and where you're joining from today? And we're delighted to welcome Marie Jose here, past international president, and also members of the district and international advocacy committees. The photo on the slide here, I haven't put this, I'll just share my slides so as you can see where we are. Keep us on track. I think you can all see that.
Yes.
Mention in the chat line and just say hello and where you're joining the meeting from today. And the photo of the globe is to remind us that on the 22nd of April, it's International Mother Earth Day. And if you haven't seen it previously, check out the UN Act Now app, which you can, the link for it is shown on the screen. So treat yourself to a new experience on Mother Earth Day. Today's meeting is being co-hosted by various members of our working group. And so without further ado, I just want to remind ourselves as to the links between increased greenhouse gas emissions and gender inequality. Just remind yourselves that they have increased greenhouse gas emissions cause global warming and more extreme weather events. And these extreme droughts, fires, floods and storms are triggering social disruption, displacing millions of people. And this social disruption magnifies any existing inequality, including gender inequality. We use 3 tools to achieve our aim of gender equal climate action. And we have we stop the train by taking climate action and closing the gender gap. And we do this through our website, our think tanks, and our framework for action. And we've developed quite a few resources now which help us on our journey to achieve gender equal climate justice. I'm handing over now to Karen Lang in Germany to update us on the actions from the last meeting in February. Over to you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol. Well, just give me the next chart and please watch the attendees coming in.
Yeah,
still.
I will.
So I have to close it here that I can see something. Yes, the actions from last meeting to make it short. We did it. The website and fact sheet are now online at zonta.org, and you can find that easily under our courses. And of course, you will also check out our new logos then of Zonta Says Now, and you will find a lot of very useful informations at this landing page, and we are so grateful for all your commentaries and suggestions on it, and please continue to do so, because the first landing page of course is a minimum viable product, yeah, and we want it to be even better. For now you can find informations about the intersectionality of climate change and gender, of course, and a lot of background information on the resources page, such as the Zonta International Statement, studies on climate and gender, international treaties and frameworks, ideas, tools, and of course our fact sheet. And again, we have considered your valuable feedback for this, so thank you very much. Yes, start drafting the questionnaire. That's the second topic. We are currently reviewing now our draft of the Zonta Says Now questionnaire, which is aimed to each of our members and which will be distributed soon. And therefore, we are currently discussing with Zonta International the best logistics to do so. So please keep updated with that and help us to distribute it to all of your Zonta friends, because that will be a very valuable, I think, foundation for improving our global impact of Zonta Says Now. And yeah, then I think you are quite familiar with our action framework you see here on the right side of the chart, which is really helpful in order to find out what you can do now very easily. And so please send us in your completed frameworks. We continue to gather them, and we are eager to hear about your ideas and collect them along with today's suggestions as well to best benefit everyone. Yes, so thank you, and back to Carol for continuing our journey.
Okay, well, I'm now going to hand you over. Oh no, Karen, I'd like you to introduce Anastasia Gbem from the Zonta Club of Lagos to us, who will be our first speaker today.
Yeah, it's so nice, and I really feel humbled and honored to introduce you now to our first speaker today, an international pioneer, a highly committed mentor, and for sure a role model for women and girls worldwide. Please welcome warmly with me Dr. Anastasia Gbem, past president from the Zonta Club of Lagos 1 in District 18 in Nigeria. Is she here already?
Yeah, I think yes. Yes, she's here.
Oh, that's okay. That's nice.
Hello.
Okay, hello. Yeah, after reading your resume, dear Anastasia, I was not surprised that you chaired as well the district's Amelia Earhart Committee. The sky is not the limit. This seems to fit perfectly. Anastasia was the first female Nigerian aviation and space lawyer, and with her, we will meet over 30 years of experience in senior management roles which cut across the formulation of laws and regulatory oversight of the aviation industry, airport management, air navigation services, and accident investigation. She has served as a top-level advisor to the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, and the Accident Investigation Bureau. And she also has served as a county delegate to International Civil Aviation Organization conferences and was instrumental in the ratification of some inaugural international air treaties for Nigeria. A highly resourceful and versatile aviation legal expert, Dr. Gbem is called to the bar as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. She holds a law degree from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and a master law degree in air and space law from McGill University, Montreal in Canada. And she enrolled as a PhD researcher in air and space law at Leiden University in the Netherlands, and has been conferred with an honorary doctorate degree of the Doctor of Science in Law and Justice Administration by the European American University of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Anastasia has been recognized as an icon of global excellence for outstanding contribution to nation building by Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria in 2021. And as a passionate and consummate contributor to social development, Dr. Gbem is a mentor and has served as the vice chairperson of the Aviation Law Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association section on business law. She is a member of the Board of Trustees of the African Women Lawyers Association and a member of the International Aviation Women's Association. And we know from her that she loves traveling, interacting with people, and learning. So welcome, Anastasia. You have the floor.
Anastasia, would you like me to enable you to share your screen so that you can share your information with us? I'll just get my...
Yeah, that'd be nice. I would like to try from here.
Excellent, excellent. I'll just Yes, there we go. Okay, well, all over to you, Anastasia. It should work now. Okay, is your screen sharing now, Anastasia? Hello?
Oh, I think she's frozen.
I think she's just frozen a
Oh.
little bit.
Yes.
Don't worry. We'll
Able.
I'll just checking.
Let me try it again.
Okay. I'll open it on my screen as well, just in case have a cut. Okay. Is it working now?
No.
No, okay, not to worry. I've got it here on this screen.
So
I can share it on my screen if you like, Anastasia, and it'll...
okay, please go ahead so that we don't waste too much time.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll just move my slides around, and we'll soon be there. Okay, just bear with me 1 second, and we will be going now. Okay. Okay. Can you see that screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Okay, you just tell me when to swap the slides over, Anastasia, and we'll be fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Carol, and thank you, Karen. I hope I got it right.
Yeah.
First of all, I also like to thank the whole think tank for letting me share information with a group on climate change issues concerning Nigeria. I'd like to commend the fact that Zonta has taken a very bold initiative to speak out on issues concerning climate change, especially as it affects the women. I'm confident that with the achievements we had with the Zonta Says No to Violence Against Women, we can ride on the back of that. And hopefully this new campaign will also be very successful, being a very important issue that is affecting the lives of many women. We can go on to the next slide, if you like. First, let me say that climate change, we talk a lot about climate change, but for many years, it was not given much attention across the world until the effects started driving a lot of issues in the society that led the UN to take a very bold step to get countries together to understand the impact of climate change on the lives of many people in the world. And with the escalating impact, which it has had, particularly one aspect of it, flooding, which has affected many countries, but in particular Nigeria very badly. The issue of climate change, we say, is now a reality. And I would like from that background to share the impact which climate change has had, especially on the lives of vulnerable women in Nigeria. Next slide. First, just a few issues, key features about Nigeria for us to understand by way of background. Nigeria is said to be one of the largest countries in Africa. It's sometimes referred to as the giant of Africa. It occupies a large landmass, and it has a lot of vegetation, which is good for agriculture. It has a lot of solid minerals, but it's also blessed with a lot of oil, crude oil and gas. And is an agricultural oil-based society, economy. And these two major economic activity has effect on the climate change as the exploration of oil and the flaring of gas, as well as the cutting down of trees to do farming, deforestation, are all aspects that can lead to heating up, lead to global warming that has effect on climate. So Nigeria is, by its nature, already prone to incidents that can highlight or escalate climate change issue. It's therefore not surprising that Nigeria as a country has had suffered some very bad effect for climate change, as we see in this presentation. Next slide. So this is just an example of one of the impacts of climate change in Nigeria. And just for 1 year, and this is in 2022. By the way, 28% of the Nigerian population live in the coastal areas and is endemic to flooding every year. Between the period of July to September, that is when we have the highest rainy season. Nigeria has 2 rivers, rivers Benue and Niger, that divide the country into 3 major zones. And these rivers themselves get swollen during the rainy season and then lead to a lot of flooding. So I'm just giving one example. Flooding has been occurring year in, year out, but this is just one example of 1 year of last year's flooding and the impact it has had on many Nigerians. As you can see in this picture, this is the area of Lokoja, where we have one of the rivers, River Niger, and the flooding between July to September damaged buildings worth $2.2 billion. That's a huge amount of economic impact. Next slide. As you can see, the flooding for 2022 affected about 4.4 million people with economic damage of about 6.7 billion. It displaced people from their residence. As you can see, women moving with their mattresses. The roads were impassable. You can see this young woman trying to leave her home on a canoe. So the streets were no longer passable. The motorists were no longer passable. In fact, they blocked the road for almost 1 year, crippling down economic activity and that means a lot for those who depend on trading, on day-to-day trading for their livelihood. Next slide. But the worst of it was that year's flood resulted or killed 662 people. Thus is the magnitude of the loss of life, and 3,174 were injured. Nigerians died in the 2022 flood. You can see the picture of a young woman who lost some relative in the flood, virtually stranded. Next slide. This is the statistic, the official statistics released by the federal government, by the agency in charge of disaster management, known as the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. If you can see, the print are small, but you can see the number of people affected, 4.4. You can see also the persons displaced, 2.4 people were displaced. See the number of injured people, and you can see the death casualty, as well as the properties that were affected just in 1 year's flood in Nigeria. Next slide. The case of women, particularly as I'm saying, we need statistics. And out of 4.4 million people that were affected, according to NEMA, which is the National Emergency Agency in Nigeria, the vulnerability rate of female is 45% to male. So out of 4.4 million, we're looking about almost 2 million women that were impacted in just 1 year flood. And out of that, about the 600 that probably we're looking about 250 women that may have lost their lives, and about 1,400 that were injured in just 1 year incident of floods, which is escalated by climate change, changes in the atmospheric issues. Next slide. And last year's flood affected over 200 local governments. Nigeria has about 776 local governments in total, covering the entire country. Last year's floods that took 600 plus lives, with 4.4 million people affected, occurred in 233 local governments. The prediction for this year, 2023, shows that the flooding is going to affect more areas, as about 314 local governments of the country, that's almost half of the country, will be covered, will be affected by flooding. So the picture looks very gloomy and not a very happy one at all. Next slide. How is the government responding to this? Of course, some victim reliefs were given to victims, but as you can see, these are palliatives that did not go very far. These are officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, the national body responsible for dealing with disaster management in the country. You can see the palliatives that are being shared here. Of course, this definitely does not go very far. We're not talking about resettling those who were displaced from their homes. We're not even talking about compensation to those families or those who lost their loved ones. So obviously, the compensation here is not adequate at all. Next slide. So in terms of institutional arrangements, what the country is doing on a national level to respond to climate change, the good news is Nigeria is one of the few countries that have adopted a national policy on climate change. It has also promulgated a national legislation on climate change. I think this legislation is one of the first amongst African countries, and globally, not many countries also have put in place. So in terms of the framework, the policy and legal framework is there, and that is supposed to guide Nigeria and help Nigeria in putting up plans that will assist the country tackle climate change issue. And also institutional-wise, it has the Federal Ministry of Environment that oversees environmental issues, and it has a department that is dedicated to climate change. Out of this policy, Nigeria has been able to develop a national climate change action plan. It also have a National Council on Climate Change that is headed by no other person than the president himself. And this council has members spread across the entire society, including private people, women, NGOs are all members of this National Council on Climate Change. Nigeria, as at 2021, is actively participating in the COP meetings. So at COP26, Nigeria committed to meeting the zero target for the reduction of emission by the year 2060. So it's working towards that. So policy-wise, institutional-wise, I think the country is in the right direction in dealing with the issue of climate change. Next slide. So the good news again is Nigeria is one of the first countries in Africa that has a national action plan that is dedicated on gender climate change, as you can see on the screen. And the action plan, which is specifically on gender climate change issue, recognizes the role of women, the importance of women in the society. It says that women are very powerful change agents that contribute meaningfully to the sustainable development of the country, and that social cultural barriers have led to a lot of inequality to women. So this National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change is meant to relate inclusion for women to participate in policy making, in action that can lead to alleviating climate change effects on women, and possibly to have optimal benefit from climate change initiative and policies and e-funds are made available. So this is a step in the right direction, which is quite commendable. And since this is one area Zonta is focused on, I think we can key in from what Nigeria is doing to see how we can partner with relevant stakeholders in Nigeria. Next slide. So for us in Zonta in Nigeria, Zonta Club of Lagos is 50 years already. We're 50 years, half a century down the line. We've been very, very committed and active in assisting women in local communities where we are located. We've helped hundreds of women with economic empowerment, as you can see. If you see this umbrella, this lady who is selling fish here, you should sit in the sun without anything to share. In Nigeria, it's common to have ad hoc stores, shops, mobile shops, where you can sit and sell your wares. So we empowered many women like this. You can see we're able to provide hundreds of these shelter umbrellas for them to be able to sit and do the market more conducively. Additionally, we extended healthcare, free healthcare to women in the local communities. Since this issue of Zonta says no on climate change is only being echoed now, not many people are conversant with it. So I have been discussing this with members of my club, and they are eagerly looking forward to what they can do. They have already proposed actions which they can take, including like advocating, just like we'll be doing for Zonta says no to violence against women, that they can push up, increase advocacy with regards to reliefs that women who are affected can get. And where, if possible, they can also see where they can rehabilitate them. And they will also be able to extend Medicare services in terms of counseling for trauma. So the club is eagerly looking forward to what they can do together, like we've been doing before, in this area of climate change to help women who are affected get better and get back to their feet and resume their normal support to their various families. The last slide. So in conclusion, I just want to echo that climate change is a really serious problem. We can see from one example in Nigeria where we're talking about over 600 lives that were lost just within a period of 3 years. That is quite alarming. We can see the number of women that were affected within 3 months, over 2 million women. That is a very, very high number. So it's really an issue that like Zonta is pushing. Zonta should continue in this direction to partner with relevant stakeholders at the international level, with UN, with World Bank, to continue to raise awareness and to drum support for women who are affected by these climate change issues worldwide. And the club should also work at the local level with relevant stakeholders to assist women that are impacted by climate change. Last slide is just thank you for your time. As you can see, this is where many women were displaced. They cannot access their homes. They are packed in one canoe. If you see behind this picture, there are those sheds, those are shops where ordinary was like a market where people were trading, but this had been displaced by flooding for just 1 year. So I'd like to thank you for the time to share the plight of women who are affected by flooding in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, for this fabulous presentation. Yeah, so that really keeps us thinking, and there's a lot of very good recommendation you made in order to combat this. Yeah, now I hand it over to Dilruba Ahmed from Bangladesh to introduce our next speaker, Hasna Moudud. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you.
I just want to check that Hasna is online. I just have a little look. Hasna, yes, she is. That's great. Good. Okay, carry on, please, Dilruba.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Hasna, yeah. So I don't think. All right. Dilruba, are you okay to? Dilruba, you're on mute. Do you want to unmute?
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Yes, I will. Yes. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for giving me this honor. It's a privilege to introduce Hasna Moudud, speaker from Bangladesh, who is a member of the UN Youth Assembly on Environment from 1972. She also worked as a field director at the US Committee for UNICEF and as a journalist at UNDP in New York. Sorry. Hasna was awarded the United Nations Environment Programme Global 500 Roll of Honor at the UN Earth Summit in 1992 in Rio and elected Vice President of the Global 500 Forum. She taught English at Dhaka University and was a visiting scholar at the University of Oxford, George Washington University, and Harvard University. She was elected to Parliament and served as elected chairperson of a parliamentary committee for coastal development and environment. Hasna has been a peer reviewer for IPCC. She's been involved with major national policies relating to the environment and the water, and was appointed to the governing council of the Bangladesh Water Board. She campaigned for declaring protected marine areas and Sundarbans as World Heritage Sites. Perhaps Sundarbans, I need to say what it is the tropical forests that are vastly laid in Bangladesh. She has co-chaired the Women for Water Sharing and People's Initiative for Water Sharing and presented guidelines for the Ganges Water Treaty in 1994. She introduced a resolution for cooperation of all co-riparian countries in the management of common rivers, which was passed at the International Union for Conservation of Nature Congress in Bangkok. Hasna was elected chairperson for 2 terms at the Bangladesh National Committee of IUNC. At our February Intercontinental Think Tank meeting, Hasna shared her reflections on the COP27 that she attended as elected councillor of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Hasna is also a member of the Zonta Club of Dhaka 1, District 25, and chair of District 25 Climate Change. I now request Hasna Moudud to give her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am so grateful to Zonta Club for organizing this conference, and thank you, Dilruba and Karen, who have been so kind and patient contacting all of us. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. I will not make any presentation. My paper is already in circulation. And I understand Zonta Club is not a scientific body. It's an organization of very professional, highly influential, highly able women who are moving the earth, and they're doing from their own background. So one of the things that we are now proposing is that we all get together, put our minds together, put our hands together to combat the climate change, because it is, as we know already, it is one factor which is going to change the fate of the planet, which is going to change the fate of our future, of our children. I was writing poetry in Iowa, at University of Iowa, very famous writers' workshop, and from there I landed in New York. And then I was at this youth assembly on environment. It was quite early, 1972. And then my roommate was a niece of the chairperson who wrote or who conducted the Law of the Sea Convention. And I watched, it was exciting, more exciting than poetry. I would sit there because by then I had a job at the UN, and I would sit there for hours and listen the negotiations and what it took. It was a new thing for me, and I was deeply moved. So I am very what shall I say? I adjust very easily. I go for what is the most important thing in life, and I go for it. I can just leave everything and go for it. So this is a bad thing, but it is also something that drives me. I have now, in my last paper, I mentioned how climate change has been accepted as a very, very important topic by COP27. Before that, we had Glasgow Convention, we had Paris Agreement. They were only for experts, mostly for experts and government representatives. But the last conference, COP27, held in Egypt at Sharm el-Sheikh, which I attended, I saw that this has broken all past record, where we go for conferences. I attended one in Montreal, one in Netherlands, and they were, very specialized, and we were all treated very specialized, and we treated the scientists very special, in a special way. But here in Egypt, I found that, people cannot wait for scientists anymore or governments to complete the negotiations. So they came all prepared, and it was like the women from Africa, women from the island countries, and they came well organized, and they were, like they're fighters. And they held, meetings, and they took over the whole conference. So most people went. The American Secretary of State, John Kerry, was in one of the huts, and he was discussing about climate change and the shield. A shield means a shield to protect the vulnerable countries. And governments were proposing. It was actually proposed first by the German foreign minister. She made a very big announcement. So John Kerry was also not behind. So he followed. So people were carried by, and I carried a poster saying, we have, it is overdue. We all have to pay for what has happened. So countries that are now suffering, like the island countries, low-lying countries, populous countries like Bangladesh, and African countries suffering from also other, not just climate change related water problem, but for many, many factors. And for example, the great drought in Africa and elsewhere. So here I found that, I have to also learn. I have to learn, of course, but I found, what can we do next? And here comes Zonta in my head, that, here is a very active body, because I have been member of so many international committees where, we all come and go, and, then we go home that we have not achieved what we wanted. But I find that, Zonta has, from long time ago, has given me a voice which I did not have before. And this I discovered in the International Congress, IUCN Congress, held in France. And I was requested by the French if I would introduce their they wanted to have a climate change crisis commission. And, already climate change is taken up in different commissions of IUCN. So when they asked me, I think they realized that I come from a very vulnerable climate change country. So I immediately took the opportunity and I made a very passionate appeal to the House. And then it was announced that they're going to go for vote. And to my surprise, the voting was not on the Climate Change Crisis Commission. It was on some, sideline thing of the commission. Who will be elected? Who will how? So, and then I protested. I said we cannot wait for this. I said I want an answer. I have introduced a commission. I want to hear the whole House vote for me. I want to know what they're thinking. So they at one point they turned off my mic, and then all the other delegates were extremely annoyed that they have turned off my mic. I continued. I spoke with my voice, and I said, "Look, my country is drowning. The Pacific Ocean islands are drowning, and we have, yes, many components of climate change, but they have not done anything. If they have done anything, I would not stand here. So we need to really focus on something and get it done like no other time. We cannot wait." And it made a very human response. So immediately they went and consulted, and they were very unhappy that I was changing the rule of the game. This is how the United Nations also works, by the way. They go by not by the main phrase, they go by the side ones, and they dilute the issue, and then they put it for vote. So in my case here, they took some time out, and then they said, no, we will vote for the main topic, that whether or not to have a climate change crisis in IUCN. It was all voted for me. All voted, not for me, I mean all voted, because it made an impact. They realized we cannot wait. So what I meant by this is that we have to take charge. We are always told women should do this, women should adapt. I have done enough of this adaptation. I have been involved with all the rules on the laws regarding the national environment plan, national NAPA, the national adaptation plan. We have done the adaptation. Now we find that we are nowhere. We haven't done anything to deserve this. It is a global phenomena that the many things, not all rich countries have contributed, but the whole world has contributed to overuse, overexploitation of natural resources and of the atmosphere. And we are in great danger, but we already see how countries are drowning, including my own country. And I am from a constituency in the coastal area. Very vulnerable people lived there. In fact, most men had left, and there were women who could not move. This is a part of the female-headed households who are left in charge of an entire family. These are young women. They have an old husband or an old father-in-law or disabled children, those who cannot leave. The able men have gone to the town looking for job, and they have never come back because they never got a good enough job to bring family or take care of the family. So I have seen this with my eyes, and I have settled a village, and that village was washed away within, and so this is on record, documented. This was washed away by sea. And more is, we lose land more than we acquire land, because accretion and this is a part of life. Flooding is part of life. But what is happening is unprecedented. And then I look at the ocean and the sea. Now here is, we have no spokesperson for the marine life, for the sea, and yet we are all beneficiary. You and I are connected by the sea. You are in Australian, near your Australian Ocean, and I am near the Indian Ocean, and you are suffering from your acidification from your coral abuse, and you had such beautiful coral. So we are all affected in a different degrees, in a different manner. Some are being affected more than others. It is not anybody's fault. What is lacking is government should come forward and civil population should come forward to find a way. Negotiations are extremely hard, but that is the only way we can go. And United Nations follows laws, and there are so many laws to protect the environment. We need to educate ourselves on the laws of the environment, on the laws of the sea, on the laws of the freshwater, UN Convention on river water. And so there are enough to protect, or we have new laws. So what can we do? We can do something innovative. I would say not just do advocacy and our children can go on making posters. I have a wonderful story from Bombay, Zonta. They are writing to me that they're doing these posters by children about climate change. So, and I am in my own small way. I have bought a piece of land in Bay of Bengal in the island, only coral island, hoping to save the sea turtles. And some of these are extremely endangered, and they are huge animals, huge marine animals, but they have no place to go for nesting, for laying eggs, and they have to have land to lay eggs. So what I did was, and I would like to propose this as a Zonta Club 1 is delighted because this project has been on for quite some time. 5-6 years at least, and my slogan is to save the turtles from plastic pollution. And that really summarizes how we all can stop this one-time use plastic. It is going into our food chain, it is going into the atmosphere, into our water system, and it is also breaking down called microplastic. The fish you like to eat is no longer the fish that is healthy for you. It is full of microplastic. The turtles are now dying because they're swallowing all these plastics. People like to go to the sea, they like to see, but what they see, they don't understand. They don't swim in the water. They just are irresponsible. Okay, we are trying to help that, but that is not the answer. We have to stop producing the plastic. It is not, okay, have Bangladesh, by the way, has one of the oldest countries that has banned plastic. It was very successful for years that, we no longer use plastic in our shopping, in our marketing. We immediately develop a degradable plastic or jute bag or cotton bag. It's still in use, but we are back to these one-time use plastic, and which is so harmful. It is clogging our river systems are so badly affected. The mangrove is affected, the sea is affected. And so this is, we need to really look at what we can do useful, with brains like us, so we can go and stop going to legislation, stop production, and practice what we are saying. So in everything, we have to now be extremely cautious. Our children are learning from us. We have to, I have to go back to poetry because I cannot cope with this anymore. I find we have more and more conferences and more, recognitions. But unless we all mean it, unless we put our head together, we are not going to go anywhere. And we look at our friends in America, they are well educated, they have the resources, and America has one of the top scientific organizations. We have to connect with them, because without science, we cannot make any argument. We can talk to the scientists and have a service that, no, we are going to help you. What I did with IUCN, I said, look, I went to Nepal, invited by Zonta Club, And there, most of the women who were Zonta members are hotel owners, because Nepal's main economy runs on tourism. And they told me that they are very interested in my work. They want to work with IUCN. They want to learn how they can improve the environment and yet, make money. And they were extremely, extremely interested. So I talked to them. I called a meeting with IUCN. But you see, they don't listen. They are not interested unless somebody tells them something happens. People don't listen to women, not right away. We have to make a movement. So now my women members, Zonta members in Nepal are playing an important role. There will be a meeting, I don't know, I think in October or sometime. We will have to find a way that no, you have to listen, that IUCN listens, government listens, and they must subsidize or help in overcoming this ban or use of one-time use plastic. It is cheaper. In the village, you will be surprised, and everybody is using straw for drinks, and how harmful that is. We don't think right away, take away food. It is increasing as we become richer in the very populous countries in the East. We are also becoming much more irresponsible. I want to say another word about the monsoon. The monsoon wind changes direction with the change of season. The monsoon prevails mainly in the Indian Ocean. It blows from the southwest, generally from April to October, and from the opposite direction, from the northeast. Southeast or summer monsoon is usually accompanied by heavy rain. So these are well known in India and East Indies. But the appearance of this pattern, wind pattern, is changing. It is linked with climate change, uplift of the Himalayas and the Tibetan plateau, as the Indian subcontinent is colliding with the Asian plate some 20 million years ago. Now, the air, monsoon is changing. It is going to have a disastrous effect if it moves from South Asia and if it moves towards another area. So these countries will face more drought. And so here we need more scientific explanation and also no, I don't know how we can prepare our population. So it is not just damage. By the way, this damage and compensation, that is usually the insurance people's demand. You have a damage, you pay compensation, but it doesn't work like that. We have to all come with a compassionate, with a human interest, and also in politics, elect those people who have got a heart, who think green, who think about the future of our children. Now everything is taken away by money, by all parties. And I'm one small person, and I think that if I go into politics, what will I do? But you see, I will learn from the other members, if Zonta allows, that no, we will stand for honesty, we'll stand for democracy, for solidarity. So, but you see, one person is not enough. So we have to give support to women politicians, or bring them in on our table and ask them, you are not doing enough, you have to do more. So I can talk and talk, but here I am. I'm so delighted to be able to be a part of this conversation. And I hope by your next conference, I'll be more organized and be able to make some suggestions which are more than advocacy. Just women should do that, but women should lead. We should lead. We have enough expertise. If I don't have the expertise, I have the spirit. I want to lead. I may not be the common sense in my head and more experience. I'm 75. I have more experience to share. So therefore, I have to have this voice. And with that, I leave you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll just share the screen.
Thank you, Hasna. Thank you. Yes, for your elaborate experience and how you fought and lent your voice and come up to this stage. I'm sure next time you will, present us with more experience so that we can do.
I think Dilruba has frozen. Everyone frozen. Hello?
First, I want to very thrilled to introduce, because I know her well from our work together on the Zonta USA caucus. And Angela Brokmann is with the Zonta Club of Louisville, Kentucky in the United States. And I work with her closely as she is the co-chair of our caucus Gender Equal Climate Action Committee. And very active with that this year, doing a tremendous amount of work, Angela. Thank you. Angela joined the Zonta Club of Louisville in 2000. She has served as club president, area director, and lieutenant governor. Angela's background is in adult education, and she has presented for North American Interdistrict meetings and also at the Zonta Hamburg Convention. Retired from the Army as a Lieutenant Colonel 05, I think I said that right, as well as the Veterans Administration. Angela has continued her support of educational efforts, with her current effort being the rollout of gender equal climate action in the US. And Angela is currently the chair of the Climate Committee for the Zonta North American Advocacy Caucus, and is a member of the International Climate Committee Work Group. Locally, she is a volunteer with Metro Government's Office for Women, where she continues to focus on CEDAW at the local level. So I am just delighted to introduce Angela to you and let you take it from there, Angela.
Thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you what we've been working on within the caucus. We have been rolling out our think tanks quarterly, and as we have progressed with think, it became more and more evident that we still have a large group of naysayers. Oh, that's not climate change, that's just weather. So we kind of took a step back and looked at, how do we interconnect violence against women and climate change? When we took that step back and looked at it, what we realized is they are so close in tracking of issues. It was amazing. Violence against women deals with trafficking, attacks, physical attacks, sexual assaults. And anytime there is a displacement from your home, you also have the interference of your ability to generate income. It interferes with your childcare facilities, and it may well interfere with education for yourself or for your children. Well, as we continued with this deep dive, we started to realize, and we did a snapshot from the Hurricane Katrina that went through in 2005 in Louisiana. Well, what we found there was, with sexual assaults, had a high increase in number. 30% of that number happened in a shelter. So when we are displaced and we go to shelter for safety, We are now at a higher risk for trafficking, for sexual assault, for physical assault, and again, the inability to generate income, to have childcare, and education for the children and for us. We found that 38% of those attacks in the shelter were by strangers. And 36% of those victims were between the ages of 15 and 24. So then we started to go, all right, the common denominator here was displacement. People may think climate change is not real because, oh, that's just weather. But we had to start helping them understand that climate change is driving weather change. The United States is a huge mass of land. It is not unusual for us to experience earthquake, fires, tornadoes, floods, and hurricanes all at the same time in different places all across the US. And then as we continue to look at what weather changes we have experienced, we found that every weather change that is considered an acute onset weather change has more than doubled in the last 20 years. At one point in time, there was a fire season or a tornado season. Those seasons are now 12 months out of the year. So it's not like you go, oh, we're going into spring and weird weather. We're having tornadoes in December. So we started looking at what happens with all of that displacement. We are seeing more frequency of the acute onset weather, and we're seeing it with a much higher intensity than we've experienced even 20 years ago. So we've been on a campaign to help tie violence against women and how it intersects climate change. I was doing a presentation at one of the local areas, and I had a woman from one of the shelters that's raised her hand and said, it's amazing that the first few items you address for your go bag for climate are the same items we address for women looking to leave a domestic violent situation at home. So we partnered together and started looking at, well, we have a list here that is good for both sides, but what we're doing on the climate side has increased. Because when you start thinking about what happens if you're caught in an earthquake? Well, you may be under rubble for a few days. Do you have your go bag with you? Were you able to grab it? Do you have a whistle? A whistle takes a lot less energy to blow to be heard over hollering for help. For tornadoes, it's the same thing. If you're lost under rubbish from a tornado, how do you preserve your energy to be found, as well as protecting those that you are charged with being the protectors of? So now we're working across the states to look at, can we determine what is considered a good go bag? What documents do they need to have? If they don't have these documents readily available, can they make copies and put in the go bag? The reality is many, many Americans are very dependent on their telephones. But in a natural disaster, you may not have phone lines. You may not have the opportunity to look it up. You may not even have the ability to charge your phone if it dies. So do you have the documentation in print form you need? Emergency contact numbers, your medication or any of the people you care for, their medication list on a paper copy that you can utilize. Then we started looking at how are we involved locally with preparing our shelters? Shelters are a quick pop-up situation. They have cots, they have sheets, they have blankets. I attended one meeting and I was one of 3 women in the room. As the meeting continued, the men explained all that they have done to prepare these shelters for emergency needs. So as a female that tends to be a little mouthy sometimes, I raised my hand and I asked them, how many of you have teenage children at home? Every man's hand went up. And I asked, how many of you provide or purchase their feminine hygiene products? Every hand went down. And I said, I'm glad you prepare for things, but if you're going to have an influx of all these women, you need to be prepared to handle women. You need women on the committees to help you think through what else do we need. You know, if women are coming with their dependent relatives, do you have dependent diapers in assorted sizes? And you could tell by the shock and awe on their faces that they just missed that opportunity completely. And I just said, that's why our voices are important, because we come with a lens that is a different lens. Many of you men allow the women to run the home, but now you're going to run a shelter and you're thinking of the big items, but we think of the sustainability items and what it takes to sustain for how long will you possibly be there. So that's part of what we're working on now, is to create a good check sheet for when we do interface with shelters, when we do interface with other organizations that say, have you considered these items? One of the other aspects we're working on to help reduce carbon footprint is the implications of solar. I had the pleasure of working with a local advocacy group here in Louisville, and they looked at an area of town which had a very high attack rate on women. And as we drove down, one of the issues was they didn't have lighting. Most of these women lived in food deserts. They had to ride the buses to go get their product. They'd get off the buses with their bags, which then told an attacker they have supplies, they probably have monies. And so we saw an increase in attacks. And when we went to that area council meeting, they said, we just don't have the budget. The lighting is so expensive. So they worked up a formula for them and showed them if they did the lighting with solar, they would actually save money and would increase the safety of the carbon footprint. So they did. They put the solar on their lights. We've seen an actual reduction of attacks against women at the bus stops, and we're seeing the impact. We didn't lead with this is good for the environment, because that wasn't their focus. We led with this is a way to eliminate violence against women. And it was interesting because they were open to hearing that, but they're still denying that there's other impacts involving our climate that we need to look at. From there, I was fortunate to attend a school board or a community school hearing, and all of our schools here have flat roofs. And I asked them, why aren't we considering, we talk about high absenteeism. What's the #1 driver of absenteeism amongst girls in elementary and junior high school is asthma. And one of the driving factors of that asthma is the particles from the electricity and the coal that we use to light and heat the buildings. Gee, folks, if we would put solar panels on all of our roofs, all your flat roofs, can we increase the days of education and reduce the health of these children, the health impacts, so that we have better health outcomes, we have more attendance in school, and therefore we're increasing the educational opportunities. Well, that was met with some scratching of the chins and some, we'll have to look into that. So now I'm one of those faces that now when I show up at these board meetings, they know what I'm going to ask about. But again, my approach is for increasing the educational awareness and improving the health outcome for the children by modifying the way we heat, which will save you money on your budget. And oh, by the way, it reduces a carbon footprint. So we have a lot that we can do to advocate for our weather changes, our climate activities. But what I have found is I take kind of a backdoor approach and I tie those issues to the violence, to the educational opportunities, to the impacts that they are already speaking to as an opportunity for a solution. And then I also introduce, and it will reduce our carbon footprint. So I'm hoping that we're making headway. We have a lot of territory to cross. And with the current increase of rapid onset, acute, violent climate action weather that we're experiencing, I think we're starting to get more attention to it. Right now, last week, we had a tornado, earthquake, and floods, all waiting for more snow to come to California. People are in a tizzy. And then we had, 2.5 feet of rain dumped on one city in Florida in a 24-hour period. They too are like Bangladesh, underwater. The planes can't go, the trains don't go, the cars don't go, the schools aren't open, and it brings everything to a halt. So as we advocate for what we're doing we can use this preparation as a tool to address our violence against women, to address our climate change, and to help drive the impact industry has on how we can help them improve these outcomes, as well as save money on their budget and couple that with decreased carbon footprint. So climate change is a gender equal issue. As we use our voices to speak out about this, don't be shy to tie these to the other issues that Zonta already speaks to. It's all related. It's all connected. And we have the skill to build that tapestry to help them understand that one change in one area has major impact in multiple areas. When you look at carbon footprint, the health, the education, and the safety of all, it makes it a hard item to just turn your head against and ignore. One of the things we'll have to continue to work on as we move forward is understanding limited resources. Water is a limited resource that I dare say America has had last year, its first real awakening with barges going down the Mississippi River, and it was so dry, all the grain rotted on the barge because it couldn't transfer the waterways because of no water. In the Southwest, we've had rivers, water tributaries shrinking to the point that they're rationing water. Eventually, they're going to need to look at, when they do ration water, how do they ration it? If we cut off agriculture first, why aren't we cutting off golf courses and swimming pools first? Where are our priorities? And when you truly look at how long some of these rules have been on the books, many of these were written many years ago. And like most countries, if it isn't broke, we don't want to fix it. Well, now we're seeing that there's a lot that might be broke, and we need to address what are the priorities and are our priorities, the best ones, to see a successful growth in how we address climate, how the roles we have as an individual, at the local level, at the district level, at the international level, across the board. So locally, driving the issues home for safety, safety in the shelter, safety in the streets, safety in the schools. And hopefully we can, as we continue to get people to understand these connections, they will also become our mouthpiece to speak up when they recognize, what about this? What about that? How do we make every woman and man who is out there dealing with the education of their children, the safety of their children, the safety of their families, help them all have that megaphone to say, we only have one earth. We need to take the steps to protect what we have, to mitigate the damage we have already created, and find out what we can do to weather the changes that climate is doing as we handle the acute onset of the chronic weather issues that we have across our United States. That is that's what we're working on. It's like all of us, it's a huge platter. But I do believe as we continue to take these in small bites and build that tapestry on how it all connects, we will see more and more aha moments as more people stand up to be vocal when they're at the meeting and they're the face that is recognized as, what about this? What about that? What are we doing for the health of our children to keep them in the schools? Can we implement solar? What are we doing for the safety in the shelters? Because we're using shelters a lot more. So that is what we're working on. Any suggestions you have for other areas as we weave this tapestry together, I welcome the suggestions. And I do believe that as a group, we will succeed in the efforts we are doing. And I thank Zonta and all my Zonta sisters for joining this campaign, stepping it up, and let's help get the word out across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Angela, for sharing all of that, and especially all that you're able to do at the local level, because that's what our clubs all need to hear, what they can do at the local level, and you're definitely doing it. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. That's
Thank you.
To hand over to Pia. Pia?
Yeah. And thanks again to all the speakers. This makes the whole meaning of Zonta 2023, I think, and onwards. And now we have come to the discussion, as we can see in the feedback, and we will split into some breakout groups. We have shortened the time a little, but you will have some time to reflect on what you have heard from today's speakers with and what you resonate with you, and how do you feel about the situations in Nigeria, Bangladesh, and USA. So, Carol, please, could
I'll put you into groups now.
Yeah, thank you.